Hello, moms. Thank you for your patience today. We are trying a new way of doing all this, a new format, and we were having a few technical difficulties there. I've got to get all of my notes set up and propped up, and the lighting's got to be just right, and the camera's got to actually work, and I've got to have audio. So all of those things I think we actually have working now. So welcome. I'm Rachel Carmen, and we are continuing our study called Counterculture Character. And this week we're looking at diligence. We refer to this series very affectionately as C3. And we've already talked about several different character qualities, and we're all the way in the list to diligence. We talked about responsibility just last week, and I think you'll find that responsibility and diligence are really closely related. I want to talk today about what diligence really means, and we want to look about an example of diligence in the life of Jesus. He is our ultimate example. Now, one of the keys to diligence is finishing what you start. And I don't know about you, but I'll confess openly, this has been hard for me. Diligence is something that I've really had to discipline myself to do. Starting's easy for me, but finishing, not so much. I've learned a lot about it in the last 34 years, especially married to my husband. He is an excellent, not just starter, but finisher. And so I've learned a lot about it from him, but also from Jesus. I want us to start our time together today in Matthew chapter 9. In this chapter, I think it's really a profound look at the life and ministry of Jesus. Why? Because in this chapter, he's got a lot of things coming at him. Mom, do you ever feel like you've got a lot of things coming at you? The pile of laundry, the what's for dinner, runny noses to wipe, character issues in your own children to deal with, the laundry to do. Boy, I feel like I've got a lot coming at me all the time. I really remember how many things I had coming at me when I had all 7 of my children in this house. There were days I just wanted to breathe, right? Just take a brief shower, just sit down, just catch my breath. Yeah, I had a lot of things coming at me, and I bet you have a lot of things coming at you too. What I want you to see in this passage today is Jesus knows how you feel. He knows what it's like to have a lot of things coming at you at the same time. Yes, he does. So let's look in Matthew 9. How did Jesus deal with it when he had all of this different stuff coming at him? So picking up in verse 18, he's already been challenged with the question of fasting earlier on in this chapter. He's just recently called Matthew, the tax collector, to follow him. And before that, he healed a paralytic. So he's already been busy in the first half of chapter 9. And we're picking up in the middle. So here in chapter 18, an official from the synagogue comes to Jesus and basically says, please, 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 please come. My daughter is really ill. Please come and heal her. So Jesus and his entourage head out following this official to go and see to his daughter. And as they're going, there is this amazing woman who has been plagued by a bleeding disorder for years and years and years. And no one's been able to help her. Now, if you really want to understand the significance of this woman's plight, you would need to go back and study the Old Testament law and everything that had to do with purification for a woman during her menstruation time. So this woman is a woman who's been bleeding for years and years and years, and it hasn't stopped. This is a shameful thing. This is an embarrassing thing. This is a debilitating thing. Socially, she would have been an outcast. And yet, there's every indication that she has heard of Jesus. And this woman thinks to herself, if I could just touch the hem of his cloak. Look, this woman didn't want any attention. She wasn't going to go up and say, look, I've got this issue. I was wondering if you could help me with it. She didn't want any of that. None of that. She was so embarrassed and so sidelined by everyone. She didn't want any attention. She just wanted the healing. And she had that much faith to believe that if she could just touch the hem of his garment, she would be healed. So in an effort not to call any attention to herself, she just comes up behind him and just reaches out, that reach of faith, just to touch the hem of his cloak. And yet, in the moment that she touches the hem of Jesus' cloak, he stops. Now, I want you to imagine this moment. An official has come and begged Jesus to come and see to his daughter. He's desperate for Jesus to come and heal his daughter. He's desperate. And Jesus has decided to go with him. And Jesus and all of his disciples are headed to go and see to this man's daughter. And Jesus stops. Can you for just a moment consider what it must have been like to be that official? You didn't want Jesus to stop. No, don't stop. Keep coming. No, we got to keep moving, right? The disciples were like, what gives? And Jesus says, someone touched me. I love the response of the disciples in this moment. They basically go, yeah, people are touching you. It's crowded. You're going to get touched, right? And Jesus is like, no. This is a different touch. Someone touched me and healing went out of me. And it says here, and I love this, it says, the woman who had been suffering from the hemorrhage came up, if I could only touch the fringe of his cloak, for she was saying to herself, if I touch him, I will get well. But Jesus turning, Jesus didn't just stop, he turned. So he's turned away from advancing toward the official's daughter. And he has turned toward this woman. It says, turning, he saw this woman. He saw her. Mom, what I want you to know today is Jesus sees you. He sees you. He gets it. He knows everything that is demanding your attention, everything that needs your help, everything you're supposed to be doing. And you're trying so hard. You're feeling dogged. Jesus sees you. He turns and he sees this woman and he says to her, daughter, take courage. Your faith has made you well. And she was well. She was well. And much to the relief of the official of the synagogue, Jesus turns back around and heads indeed to this official's home, where he finds his daughter having died. And everyone is weeping, and Jesus is like, no, she's not dead. And they laugh at him because they're like, she's dead. And he raises her back up to life. But that's not where this passage ends, okay? So far at the beginning of the passage, remember, healed a paralytic, called Matthew to follow him, answered a question about fasting. Now he has decided to go to the official's house, but interrupted by a woman who had faith enough to think it was just a touch, and she was healed. Then Jesus turned back around, went to the official's house, raised her from the dead, and now as he's leaving there, he's approached by two blind men. Right, I mean, really? All of this is coming at the Lord Jesus. And after the two blind men, it's a mute, demon-possessed man. I'm not making this up. Read it for yourself. All in this one passage, all of these things coming at Jesus. And yet, Mom, I want you to see there's no indication in any of these interactions, between any of these interactions, that there was any rush. I don't know about you, but I know that if I had a child who was critically ill and I found Jesus, I would want him to sprint to my home to be with my child. And yet we don't see that. We see a very confident gait. We see a man who is set on doing what? The will of the Father. I want to call your attention finally to the end of the passage. It says in 35, it says, Jesus was going through all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogue. Teaching takes time. Teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom. And three things, three verbs: teaching, proclaiming, and what? Healing every kind of disease and every kind of sickness. Then in 36, it goes on to say, seeing the people, he felt compassion for them. This is a different level of seeing. He didn't just see as he could identify that there were people, like you notice that there's deer in your yard or maybe a squirrel. It wasn't that kind of seeing. When we see seeing that Jesus saw, he saw beyond just the identification. He saw straight through them to the heart and their need. And it says Jesus, seeing the people, felt compassion for them because they were distressed. He could see their distress. And they were dispirited like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plenteous, but the workers are few. Therefore, beseech the Lord of the harvest and send out workers into his field. In other words, Jesus says, there's so much to do. Do you see it? Jesus, Mom, do you ever feel like there's so much to do? I need help. That's what Jesus says right here. There is so much to do. Mom, do you feel like you need help? Do you feel like you need help? Jesus is our helper. So I want to make a few points here. I want to make sure that you see several keys here that I think could really minister to your heart, mind, and soul today. Jesus engaged in the needs of others, those people who were around him, without being rushed. He rested, he ministered, he prayed, he saw, he responded diligently, seeing things through to their end. He did not get so distracted by the woman who touched the fringe of his cloak that he didn't finish with the official's daughter. Jesus saw it through. There are two keys here in our pursuit of diligence that I think make all the difference. First of all, focus. Now, we talked about focus previously, and if you want to go back and watch that video, and we have some worksheets that go along with that, focus, focus, focus. Mom, you and I need to be focused in what we're doing. Singularly focused on what I would submit to you to be the very most important thing we can be focused on, and that's the glory of God. We must be focused on his glory, focused on the finish line of what he's given us to do. It is so easy for us to lean into distraction. Mom, I want you to think just real quickly, what is the number one thing that you have the hardest time finishing doing? Or maybe just the number one thing that you put off doing? So as the mother of 4 sons, it's always been easy for me to put off cleaning toilets at my house. Just going to be honest with you, right? Very easy for me to find 1,000 different things to do except that. Or maybe more palatably, it's very difficult for me to put off my file pile. I don't know why. There's just something glorious when you get to the end of putting all those things where they're supposed to be, but it is so easy for me to just put off filing all of those things. Mom, I bet you have some things that are very easy for you to put off. It's very easy for us to lose our focus and to lean into distraction. Why? Because distraction takes us off focus. It's all the fluffy stuff. It's all the filler that uses all of that precious time that we've been given. Moms, our Lord Christ was focused totally on doing what God had sent him to do, the work of the Father, bringing the Father glory. That was Jesus' focus. And that's the focus that he invites us to latch onto as moms, that we would choose against being distracted. Refuse distraction, but be open to interruption. We see this in the passage right here. Jesus was singularly focused on glorifying God, going with the official to see to his daughter, but he was simultaneously open to interruption. See, when we are set on doing what God has given us to do, we can refuse distractions, all of those filler things that do nothing but waste our time. But we can always be open to interruptions, opportunities to serve, to minister, to back up and do something again with our children, those are appropriate things. So one, the first key to actually being diligent is that we have focus. Focus, focus, focus. The second one is that we practice discernment. Mom, you and I must practice thinking through what do we need to do and what do we not need to do. We don't just need to do everything because everybody else is doing it. We don't just need to do everything because we're panicked or we're emotional. We need to pause long enough to actually consider, is what we're thinking about doing something that would bring glory and honor to God? Is that what this next decision will actually do? All too often, we totally skip the discernment step before we're committing into things. Look, people will fill up as much of your time as you want them to. We have got to make sure we pause and think what we should be doing. And furthermore, moms, you and I need to know when we need to stop doing something. When perhaps we've started doing something that we ought never to have started, and we need to pull back and just set it aside completely. Look, if your mind is cluttered with 1,000 different things that are started but not finished, your head will constantly swirl and you will feel the weight and the oppression of all of those things that are going unfinished. Jesus came for us to be free of all of that weight. So there are times when we started something and we just say, you know what, I'm not going to do that. This is not the right time. This is not the season of my life. And we set it aside. In both of these instances, when we're talking about focus, when we're talking about discernment, we're also talking about one overarching idea. Mom, I want to challenge you to choose against busyness. Choose against busyness. Choose against getting all caught up in the rush that is our culture. It worships busyness. It is like a medal of honor. You've heard this said over and over. Oh, yeah, we're just so busy. Oh, we're just so busy. We must stop pursuing busyness. Busyness begets more and more things that don't ever get finished. They just get started. And you know what happens? You feel more and more and more the weight of that on yourself, and you have less and less freedom to do what you ought to be doing. In our culture, when we worship busyness, we run instead of rest. We text instead of talk. We chase the wind instead of seek God. That's the contrast offered to us. Jesus came so that we could rest. His finished work at Calvary grants us rest. Moms, I want to dare you to be diligent to finish strong what you have started. Based on Philippians 1:6, he who began a good work in you will see it through to completion. Do you see it? He began the good work and he's going to finish it. He's asking you to cooperate with him. So as we end today, I just want to ask you a couple of questions. What has he begun in your heart? Has he begun molding it and fashioning it to the image of his son? Has he begun teaching you what love really is according to 1 Corinthians 13? Or maybe giving you the fruit of the Spirit according to Galatians 5? He is faithful to complete it. We need to be diligent about the work that he has given us to do, which is not everything. It's a few things, that we would do them well for his glory. I love you, moms, and I'll see you next time.